Okay, today we're going to look at launching Hue on an AWS EMR cluster. So we're going to assume that you're familiar with AWS, Hive, and EMR, and that you can use the command line interface that you to interact with the AWS service. If you're not, there's lots of information on the AWS about how to do this, or on the Coppelia blog. So first thing, we're going to give you a quick tour of Hue. Then we're going to show you how you launch a cluster on EMR with Hue running on it, and then I will show you how you connect to it with your browser. There's going to be quite a bit of stuff here that's kind of more heavily computer science than, say, analytics or statistics, but it's very interesting, and I hope you bear with it because it's worth it. Once Hue's up and running, it's a fantastic tool. Okay, let's have a look at Hue then. We've logged in. This is the Hue application being served from the master node in our EMR cluster, and we are logging in for the first time, and so we need to set up a Hue super user. So I'm just going to call it Simon, and I'm going to create a password. You've got to remember your password because it's a super user password. You won't be able to get back into it if you don't. Okay. Great, so you get a kind of your standard tips thing to get you going, and here we have a sort of welcome page where you can start projects and or go straight into the query editor like Hive. There's also a file browser, a job browser to look at the MapReduce jobs that you've got going on, but we'll go straight into the file browser, because what we're going to do is we're going to repeat exercises that we've done with the CLI tool before. A simple thing, we're going to create a table, run a simple query against it, and look at the output. So you'll see that this is so much easier because we can now go in, find a file, upload it from our local machine, and then create a table from it. I'm going to use a file of Egyptian skulls, I think ancient Egyptian skull measurements. So I've loaded it in, brilliant, it's gone into a folder called Simon, and now if I just go over to the metadata store manager, I should be able to build a table based on that. It's going to create the SQL create table statement for me. Let's have a go at this. Create table from a new file. Put in skulls. I like skulls. Right. Yes, let's choose the input file. Brilliant. Okay, and then go next. It's going to take a guess at the delimiter, and it's got it right. It's comma delimited. At the moment, it hasn't sorted out the header yet, but it will at the next point. Brilliant. It's a bit conservative in its estimates of some of these data types, so I'm going to change these to big int. Slightly overkill, but we're not too worried at this point. Okay, and I think that's all I need to do. Create table. So that should now allow me to access via Hive. There you go, there's pig, by the way. We've not covered pig, but it's an application we launched on a cluster, so it's available. There's our skulls data set. We can even look at it. Look at a sample from it. All looks lovely. I have no idea what these are, but I guess there's some kind of front and sideways measurements or something out of the skull. But these are the Egyptian epochs, or epoch, that the skulls belong to, I'm guessing as well. Right, okay, let's just run a simple query. Okay, say I want to take, for example, the average MB for each skull per epoch. Let's do this. Select average. Oh, missed out. Epoch. One skulls by epoch. Don't know whether it needs a semicolon, but okay. So we can go over here and we can actually watch our MapReduce job in progress. So you can see it being dealt with either by the mappers and the reducers, and it will tell you whether it fails. It's a very small table, and obviously we wouldn't really be doing a MapReduce job when querying it, but this is just for demo purposes. Right, brilliant. Okay, let's go back and have a look. Okay, brilliant. That's the results, and you can, this is some kind of visualization, crude visualization of the results there as well. So it's so much better than having to submit scripts via the CLI the whole time. And of course, it will radically change the way you work, because if you've got a whole step of transformations, an ETL process that you want to deal with, and it's failing somewhere, of course you can then go in, have a look at some of the tables along the way, and debug it in that way, or build up your whole process via the usual kind of methodology of development through this interface. So it's so much better. Right, let's go and have a look at how we set this up and how we put it on the EMR cluster and how you can connect to it and get this really brilliant tool. So now we're looking at how we launch Hue on an EMR cluster using the AWS command line interface. So let's take you through what we have here. It's the usual create cluster, EMR create cluster command that you've seen in previous exercises, but this time we are not only launching Hive, we're also launching Hue, as well as Pig, because I wanted to put Pig in there just to show you that you can access other applications as well. So you'll also notice that there isn't the args section that we had before, because we're not actually needing to launch any Hive script here. We can do that interactively from Hue itself. Okay, off we go. I'm just going to hit return, and we should see our cluster ID coming up with any luck. There it is. Brilliant. Okay, so we can just go over now to the AWS console where we should see it launching. Okay, if I just refresh this, there it is. Hue demos up and running and installing Pig, getting ready to run Hue and install Hive. So we should be able to come back to this in about 5 minutes time and see where we are. In the meantime, let's go and set up our key pair that we're going to need to log into the master node, which is provisioning right now, of our cluster. To create our key pair, we need to head over to the EC2 area in the AWS console. Here we go. Right, we can now click on key pairs. So what we're doing here is we're doing something called public key encryption. It's a situation where two keys are generated, a public key and a private key. And the idea is very simple. Anybody can encode a message using the public key, but only a person with a private key can decode that message. And this is going to be important when we do the SSH tunneling. Okay, so let's have a look at how we do this. It's very, very straightforward. Just hit create key pair and you give it a name. Okay, I've already got one called Capalia. I'm going to have one just for demo purposes called Capalia 2. Create it, and you'll see something comes up here. This is the key, and we then just save this key to our local drive, and we'll be using it again when we do the SSH tunnel. Okay, so that's how you generate your public-private key pair. We're back at the cluster list in the EMR section of the AWS console, and we can see that our cluster, our EMR cluster, is up and running, and all the steps have completed, and therefore we've got Pig and Hive and Hue running on the cluster. So the next thing we want to do is to connect to the master node, which is running Hue, and be able to access Hue. So to do this, if you click on cluster details and then click on enable web connection, it gives you a set of instructions for how to do this. Now these instructions look quite intimidating if you're not from a computer science background. But what I'll do is I'll attempt to give you my gloss on what I think is going on. It might not be perfectly correct, but it would suit our purposes. On the master node of the EMR cluster is a web server, and that web server is serving web pages through a port, but we don't want those web pages to be available on the internet, publicly available. What we're going to do is we're going to send those pages, that information, down an SSH tunnel, a secure encrypted tunnel, to a proxy server on our machine, and then we're going to access as proxy in the sense that it's a proxy for the web server on the master node, and we're going to then use our browser to interface with the proxy server, sort of simulating how we would access a web server, but via the internet, but not via the internet, if you see what I mean. It's coming down through the SSH tunnel. In order to get Chrome to do this, what we need to do is to tell Chrome that it's dealing with a proxy server, not the internet. And you can do this manually through Chrome, but there is an add-on called Foxy Proxy that we'll install, which detects whether or not we're dealing with a proxy server or whether we're dealing with the internet, and will allow us to switch between the two nicely. So, okay, how do we do this? What I do is I copy this command here that's been nicely updated by AWS to reflect my DNS master node. So I'm copying that, and I'm going to open up, there we go, let's just get rid of that. Paste it in. So, with any luck, if I execute this, find that the connection has now been opened. Right, so next stage is to set up the Foxy Proxy add-on on Chrome. You click on this link here and download the add-on to Chrome and restart Chrome. And then you just open up, say, Notepad or a text wrangler if you're on the Mac, and create a text file with this XML in it. Store this somewhere useful, because you're going to need to refer to it in a moment. There's a little explanation there about what it all means. The next thing you do is open up Chrome. Chrome's opened up, and you go here. Here is the icon for Foxy Proxy. Go to Options, and you'll see a section here that says Import Export. Simply click on that, find your file. Mine was in here. Click on it. I've done it already, so I'm not going to do it again. But basically, that loads in. You make sure that you've got this set as follows, and you save that. And that's going to be ready for you to connect now. Okay, so what should happen is that I can now put in the DNS name of the master node, put a colon, and then 48, and that should connect me with any luck to Hue. So let's give this a try. So let me go back and get myself the DNS name, which I have here already. Okay, stick that in. Right. Foxy Proxy should work out that from that DNS name that I am using the proxy server. So here we go. Not the world's fastest typer. Right. 48. Fingers crossed. Brilliant. Okay. Okay, fantastic. We're into Hue, and we're back to where we started. So you'd set up your user here and log on and do all the things we showed you. So that's it for today. So just recap on what we looked at. We've looked at the way in which you can launch Q and do some of the things that were frankly a struggle using the CLI tool and the Hive scripts. You can do them interactively, and you can explore your data, and it's just a whole lot easier. Then I'll show you how to launch that cluster with Hue running on it, and then the slightly convoluted but worth it method of connecting up your browser to Hue on the master node. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching.